let's start with a quick clip of this guy, John Hagee. And when I first, he is a pastor. When I first heard that he was on the bill, and there wasn't that many people on the bill. It was like, what, 10, 12 people, was it?
Michael Rappaport.
God. Van Jones.
Yeah. There wasn't, I mean, how many people were on that bill? I don't know. I saw a list, and maybe there was more. Maybe it was like 25. But this guy was deemed too toxic for John McCain back in 2008. Like, this is one of the things I'm quite convinced I've written about him in FUBAR. He was one of the most virulent anti-Semites. And when I saw that he was going to be on this this pro-war rally out in front of the White House, I thought it was a joke. And then I recalled it was like 7 or 8 that were billed. I mean, so he is one of, like, you know, one of the top speakers at this. And I recall a couple of interviews that Michael did back in the day, and specifically talking about the relationship with Bibi Netanyahu. And a lot of these Israelis, they were making relations not only with hard right fasci parties in Europe, but all of these, in many instances, very virulent anti-Semitic people.
Christian Zionists. And, you know, we joke about it here that these people only care about Jews insofar as that we can be sent back to Israel. 2/3 of us get, go into eternal hellfire. 1/3 sit on the right-hand side of God, but, you know, as sort of like post-Jewy guys. And this guy, let's play this. No, that's what he actually believes. This is the embodiment of that entire ideology.
Let's I don't know. Let's play clip number 5. Actually, this is from 2005. This is why Israel is so important to these Christian Zionists. This is clip number 5, because all they care about is that the Jews get back to Israel, so that the Messiah can return. And if it takes a Hitler to do it, yeah, thank goodness for small blessings, I guess.
Jeremiah 16, behold, I will bring them, the Jewish people, again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. That would be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Behold, I will send for many fishers, and after will I send for many hunters. And they, the hunters, shall hunt them, that will be the Jews, from every mountain and from every hill and from out of the holes of the rocks. If that doesn't describe what Hitler did in the Holocaust, you can't see that. So think about this. I will send fishers and I will send hunters. A fisher is someone who entices you with a bait. How many of you know who Theodore Herzl was? How many of you don't have a clue who he was? Woo! Sweet God. Theodore Herzl is the father of Zionism. He was a Jew that at the turn of the 19th century said, this land is our land. God wants us to live there. So he went to the Jews of Europe and said, I want you to come and join me in the land of Israel. So few went. Herzl went into depression. Those who came founded Israel. Those who did not went through the hell of the Holocaust. Then God sent a hunter. A hunter is someone who comes with a gun and he forces you. Hitler was a hunter. And the Bible says, Jeremiah writing, they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill out of the holes of the rocks, meaning there's no place to hide. And that will be offensive to some people. Well, dear heart, be offended. I didn't write it. Jeremiah wrote it. It was the truth and it is the truth.
There you go.
How did it happen?
I mean, imagine if, like,
Jeremiah didn't write the Hitler part.
Yeah, he's extrapolating a little.
There's some interpretation going on.
But I suppose, you know, I mean, Hitler sent by God to help with the founding of Israel. That may be a little bit controversial. Apparently not at this pro-war rally that Israel's lobbyists set up in front of the White House. Here is that same guy. I wonder if he delivers that same line. Let's hear it.
Freedom-loving democracy. Israel is this and more. Israel is the apple of God's eye. Israel is the shining city on the hill. Israel said, God says of Israel, Israel is my firstborn son. Jerusalem is the city of God. Jerusalem is the shoreline of eternity. Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel today and forever.
Yeah. You know, if you ever needed more reason to understand and ability to understand why Zionism is not the same as Judaism. In Judaism, we don't believe that God had a son. We don't believe in idols. I mean, technically, the Torah commands us to smite those who believe in idols. I don't take these things so literally. But make no mistake about it. That was a pro-war rally. That had nothing to do with anti-Semitism, because if it did, you wouldn't have dedicated one of the top 7 or 8 billed people to a renowned anti-Semite.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Yeah, and it did. Like,
whoops! How did that anti-Semite get on there?
They're trying to redefine what anti-Semitism actually means in order to cover for the continued genocide of Arabs and brown people. Like, they're trying to, and it's a very scary thing, make anti-Semitism about people who stand in the way of white capitalist power and like Western hegemony in places like the Middle East, exerting its influence through blood. And in opposition to that, they're trying to say that those people are in any ways the anti-Semites, when Semites were, you know, outsiders. Semites were persecuted, as opposed to like what they're thwarting it into and manipulating it into is now being the center of power in the world and in the West. That is not what anti-Semitism is about. And it's evident in the fact that that guy's speaking there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pro-war rally. It was a pro-Israel war rally is what it was. Angel from Alberta says the Israel on Campus Coalition gave grants of $250 plus expenses for college students to go to rally. In the fun half, Emma will talk about the story of a private jet that they didn't want to walk on the tarmac, apparently.
Yeah, they chartered private jets to get there.
But here, let's play this one last clip of, and we'll play some others later. But here is political commentator Van Jones. And I will say this, look, for years, and I know that I've sort of alluded to this a couple of times over the years. I interviewed him, I don't know, about 10 years ago on this program, back when we were just doing audio. And I remember that interview just thinking like, what? He had made a big deal at Netroots Nation as to wanting to create a left version of the Tea Party. And I remember asking him, like, and who are we talking about? Like, who are I don't know if I said the enemies or, you know, and there are none. It's there as if there is no sort of like there's no thing stopping people from getting material benefits in this country. No person, no group, no aligned interests.
Just a lack of focus.
It's just it's just happening out there. And, you know, since that time, it's become quite clear to me that, like, wherever there is an opportunity for Van Jones to be the guy who can sort of be pushing back on something, but not really, he'll be there. And this is one of those instances, but he is so thrown off in attempting to call for, like, Israel to, yeah, I mean, he didn't realize, apparently, this is a pro-war rally.
How do you not realize that?
They are there to promote more war, period, like explicitly. And he didn't seem to realize this. He says something that even alludes to the fact that there should be some hesitancy to bomb civilians. And they start cheering for no ceasefire so strongly that he gets thrown off. And listen to what he says.
I do feel powerful is to maybe do something about what's happening here. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslim. Let's take a stand here against hatred. Let's take take a stand here against hatred of all kinds. I don't want any Jewish mother.
Yeah. And so he apologized. He said, my speech read, let's stand against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's stand against anti-Muslim bigotry here. Let's stand against hate here. But he says on Twitter, but the chanting crowd threw me off and I misspoke. We need to stand with Muslims and Jews and everyone who is under threat.
I mean, I don't doubt that he originally sort of said, let's stand against Muslim bigotry. But the idea that like he walked into this situation and didn't realize how virulently pro-war and just these people were, it threw him off.
He must have been born yesterday. I don't understand how you're a political commentator and don't have that understanding.
I mean, it's kind of his thing.
It's been in the news for a few weeks now, really since October 7th almost, certainly the week following, that the sort of, lower level staffers at the State Department were quite unhappy with the Biden administration's response to October 7th, meaning they were very much doubtful of the merits of unconditional support for Israel and the State Department's own position of handling disputes with Israel in private. In other words, that famous Matthew Miller interaction with Max Blumenthal. Well, if we suspect Israel is violating international law, we will settle that with them in private behind closed doors. We won't make a big public spectacle out of it. As video and images keep coming out of Gaza showing the absolute horror that is day-to-day life there now since October 7th and really before October 7th. A lot of people at the State Department have been voicing their displeasure. So finally, Axios reports, internal State Department memo blasts Biden U.S. policy on Israel-Hamas war. So we saw, his name was Josh Paul, I think. He offered his resignation a few weeks back. He was one of the people who was obviously moved to quit his post entirely based on dissatisfaction with Biden's policy. But as reporting said at the time, and now we know for sure formally, he was not alone. So Axios has this reporting. An internal State Department dissent memo accuses President Biden of spreading misinformation. Look at that. On the Israel, wow, you've pissed off the libs when they accuse you of misinformation. Because don't forget, this is the State Department. These are Biden State Department people. These are Democrats in good standing. That is quite the stone for them to throw. You really fucked up. You really stepped in it when they're giving you the misinformation business. On the Israel-Hamas war, and alleges that Israel is committing war crimes. Wow.
There's basically like The View calling you out on your bullshit.
Exactly. War crimes. That's strong language, because we talked about on our previous episode, Emmanuel Macron calling for a ceasefire, but would not call out war crimes because of the legal implications associated with that charge. But no, according to this dissent memo, they are willing to say it like it is, that war crimes are being committed in Gaza, according to a copy of the memo obtained by Axios. Why it matters. Axios always phrases their shit like this. The scathing 5-page memo, organized by a junior diplomat who has suggested on social media that Biden's support of Israel has made him, quote, complicit in genocide in Gaza, offers a rare look at the raw divisions within the Biden administration over the Israel-Hamas war. The memo, signed by 100 State Department and USAID employees, urges senior U.S. officials to reassess their policy toward Israel and demand a ceasefire in Gaza, where more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in the war, according to Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry. Some of the memo's language echoes that of progressive activists in the U.S., whose anger and protests over Biden's handling of the war have rippled through the Democratic Party and created a new challenge for the president's 2024 campaign, the latest of many. Without offering a specific example, the memo accuses Biden of, quote, spreading misinformation in his October 10th speech supporting Israel, one of the signature addresses of his presidency. The memo also said that we strongly recommend that the U.S. government advocate for the release of hostages by both Hamas and Israel, citing the thousands of Palestinians being held in Israel, including those without charge. So pretty strong words from the State Department, but it gets worse. Biden administration staff sign open letter demanding ceasefire in Israel-Hamas war. This is White House staff. Hundreds of federal employees signed an open letter calling on the president to urgently demand a ceasefire and the de-escalation of the conflict through the release of hostages and provision of humanitarian aid. More than 400 employees of President Joe Biden's administration have signed on to an open letter demanding he pursue a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war that has killed thousands of civilians thus far. Quote, we represent a coalition of Biden-Harris administrative political appointees and civil servants positioned across the domestic and foreign policy spheres. So this is in addition to the dissent memo at the State Department, working in federal agencies, departments, independent agencies, and the White House. The letter released Tuesday begins. Quote, we call on President Biden to urgently demand a ceasefire and to call for de-escalation of the current conflict by securing the immediate release of the Israeli hostages and arbitrarily detained Palestinians, the restoration of water, fuel, electricity, and other basic services, and the passage of adequate humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, it continued. The letter says that the signatories represent various backgrounds and faith and work in more than 30 departments and agencies. Two administration staff members who led outreach efforts for the letter told NBC News that since the letter was first circulated about 2 weeks ago, it has gained the signatures of senior and low-level administrative employees working across the federal government and in multiple countries. They include staff in the Departments of Commerce, Defense, Interior, Homeland Security, and the Executive Office of the President, among other agencies. The two staff members who are political appointees asked to remain anonymous out of concern about retaliation for speaking out against the administration's position. Listen to this sentence. They said those who signed the letter also remained anonymous out of concern for their job security and personal safety.
Yeah, that one was very interesting.
Personal safety?
Yeah.
I thought we beat fascism when we got rid of Donald Trump. I thought fascism wasn't a problem anymore. They're concerned for their personal safety, for signing a letter dissenting against Joe Biden's policy. The White House did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. The letter is the latest edition.
They call it getting Epsteined.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. The letter is the latest addition to growing calls on the Biden administration to demand a ceasefire and reassess its handling of Israel's war with Hamas. This is a quote. Every day you're going into work for this administration, then you're going to look at your phone. You're going to see the suffering that you kind of feel like you're causing. Wow. The suffering that you kind of feel like you're causing as a member of this government. A lot of people are no longer comfortable being silent, no longer comfortable being complacent in a way. That was a staff member who remained anonymous for fears of, like they said, not just professional retribution, but out of concern for their safety. Since the war began after Hamas's brutal attack on Israel on October 7th, several efforts have launched from within the government to push for the de-escalation of the conflict, including letters from hundreds of Biden's former 2020 campaign staff and Muslim and Jewish congressional employees. The congressional staff urged Congress to support a ceasefire in light of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim, and anti-Palestinian sentiment on the rise nationwide. Last slide. It's unfortunate that we're at this point, one of the Biden administration staff members told NBC News. Having hundreds and thousands of people come together within this administration and within Congress and say, we are calling for a ceasefire, something that's so basic to just end human suffering. They are in alignment with 66% of the American people, by the way. The two are among what they said are many signatories with family and friends in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. Our loved ones are in imminent danger, and every single day waking up and not knowing what's going to happen is absolute hell. Imagine working for Biden. Some people who signed this letter work directly for the White House, some in Homeland Security, some in DOD. Imagine being part of this administration, having family members in Gaza. Imagine.
And we've been talking over the last 48 hours about why the administration didn't send anybody to that peaceful protest where there were 300,000 people. Of course, the White House says, look, the president was going to San Francisco. They could have sent the vice president. Here's the problem, though. I don't think they want to address the issue that this administration has 100% got Israel's back. Because when you look at the demographics, a lot of people in the Democratic Party support the other side. And that's one of the reasons, and we haven't really seen any polling since the march, but when you look at Joe Biden's disapproval, the number of people who don't like him right now, at this point, a year before the election, you know, there should be a red warning bell going off, a warning light on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, because he's got some problems right there, and he needs all those voters to be much smaller numbers, but they're giant right now.
Look at the number of people that don't like him. 63% of men, 62% voters under the age of 45, 60% of Hispanic voters don't like him, 57% of college degree voters, and 41% of black voters.
All right, when it comes to they had a Fox News poll on the preference on the Republican side it was because we're still in the primary process. According to the Fox News poll, Donald Trump's popularity went up from October to November. Ron DeSantis went up a point. Nikki Haley went up a point. But he is way up in front.
Why do you think that is, Brian?
Well, I think that what's happened with Donald Trump is he now has a resume. And his resume looks better because they compare it to what we're living through now.
Right.
From the border to the economy to the foreign policy to our military, our respect around the world, the trade deals that don't happen under this president, the unrest in the cities, the way the president insisted on cracking down and sending in federal troops, much to the consternation of many liberal mayors. And you have another guy who doesn't think there's a problem with crime, there's no problem with illegal immigrants, overwhelming Democratic cities with Democratic mayors.
But then
so they're just comparing the two.
But then it gets worse, because then when you put the former president against Biden as well as RFK, he's getting 41% of the vote right now. And it just shows you that the whole notion of emotion and all that, it's just not working with the American people now, living paycheck to paycheck. And although we're not in this war, I think the weakness of Joe Biden compared to the past administration, they were supposed to, you know, bring the adults back into the room and get peace and all of this.
How's the peace going?
Yeah. How's the not going so well right now under Joe Biden?
Right, and Ainsley, to your point about why Donald Trump went up a little and Nikki Haley went up a little and Ron DeSantis went up a little, two people who had a substantial amount of voters behind them, Mike Pence and Tim Scott, both dropped out. And so where are those people going to go? A couple of them went to Trump, a couple of them went to DeSantis and Haley.
It's just
more of a war zone where it's continuous bombing, shooting. Drones are within the hospital area, targeting and shooting anyone moving between the buildings. The ambulances are not allowed to move in or out of the hospital. whoever tries to move will be killed.
Charles Blow, this situation in Gaza has become a liability for President Biden at home. Arab American voters expressing a desire to not vote for him again. African Americans, young Black voters who are aligned with the Palestinian cause, turning against him. It's a real problem, even in his own administration. Letters being sent around from people in the administration objecting to the policy, including members of Congress getting similar missives from their own staffs. Here's a poll I want to show you. This is President Biden. If, in fact, there was a five-way race for president right now, he would get 35%. There's just one poll, just a Quinnipiac poll, and it is a year out. 38% for Donald Trump. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. polling at 17%. Cornel West at 3%. Jill Stein at 3%. This doesn't even include Joe Manchin, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Talk a little bit about the ways in which this conflict has impacted President Biden and changed in some ways the way people look at how his reelect might look.
Right. So I always have to say this when starting out this conversation, that there is no real comparison between what Joe Biden is doing and what Trump has basically signaled that he wants to do to the country, which is basically to destroy it. So I think we always have to just start there, even when discussing whatever the weaknesses Biden may have. I do think that the Gaza situation has opened up a real chasm between the Democratic coalition that existed and younger parts of that coalition. They're just really upset. And it is hard to look at this and not be upset on some level, even when you accept that Hamas committed a terrorist attack, killed 1,200 people. That's horrific. Even if you accept that it is horrific that they took hostages, and that is a horrible thing to do in any regard. You don't know where your loved ones are. That's horrific. Still, when you have over 10,000 people killed in 1 month of war, it is unconscionable. There's no other way to think about that. I've heard people say, well, when you're attacked in a terrorist attack, you can't tell that country what to do. You couldn't tell the U.S. not to go into Afghanistan. Even there, the comparison doesn't hold. The Afghan war, I think there were almost 50,000 civilians killed in that war over 20 years. If you average that out, that's 200 people a month. That's still horrible, but it doesn't stack up to 10,000. And maybe you can say that in the beginning of a war, there were more civilians killed than at the end. Whatever you want to say. You can say that Hamas may be inflating the numbers a little bit. I take that your point. Still, the numbers are incredible. And when you understand that more than half of those, at least by the reports, are women and children, how do you deal with that? And I think a lot of people, particularly young people, are looking at that and saying, this is not a moral thing. This is immoral.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of RBN Live. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. That stands for Compton J on social media, or J in real life. Welcome all, almost 300 people here already. Hit that like button. Was going to take a week off. I'm probably going to still take a week off. I'm just going to start it after today's show. But there's so many stories piling up. I'm like, my God, there's so many stories piling up. I have got to come on and do this, even if I'm feeling a little sick, and you may hear it in my voice at some point. But there's a lot of stories going on. I'm going to try to get to all of them, or as many as I can. Let me just read some of them. So, of course, we're going to cover the DNC. There was anti-genocide protests in front of the DNC, and the DNC calls the police. Got video, real, like on the ground video, and then it's also been covered in corporate media. We'll see how the distinction between the two. We'll look at MSNBC, a Fox News, and a CNN clip. So you can see all of the three major cable news networks and their coverage of the same thing. And then we'll see what the people on the ground covered and the receipts they have. And then there's also a fantastic story about bus drivers who use BDS tactics to prevent almost 1,000 attendees from going to that pro-war rally in Washington, D.C. that was dubbed a pro-Israel rally. Briahna Joy Gray ratios the President Joe Biden. Last time I checked, she had something like 52,000 likes on the ratio. We're going to check that out. And then Caitlin Johnstone, again, with a great tweet where she talks about the whitest protest march ever, in that being the pro-Israel march. And it's funny because I made a similar assessment because we were live when the rally was live. It was the post-duopoly show. So when we were live, that rally was actually live. So anyway, we'll get to that. What's another story? Then there's a viral TikTok that calls out pro-life supporters. And where are they when it comes to these Palestinian babies? And then we'll talk about Nico House did a great video, hotspot video, where he talks about Israel's top sort of 5 cartoonish propaganda, and Caitlin Johnstone also makes a contribution to that segment. Then the Willow Project was approved by feds or by courts. We'll talk about that. Nikki Haley demands real names from everybody on social media as she uses an alias for herself. Nikki is not her name. Very funny, isn't it? And then Medea Benjamin, we got some footage of Medea Benjamin talking to pro-Israel supporters. Maybe I'll include that in the Whitest protest. I'll mesh those together. But that's not even all the stories, everybody. And we're just hit 300 people watching. Hit that like button. Let's get to 300 likes. Let me get to the other stories that I'm going to try to squeeze in. I wanted to try to do 10 stories, 10 minutes, 10-minute segments. We'll see how that goes. But then there's a Tucker Carlson interviews Candace Owens. So I want to get to that also. Then now the rest of the stuff is if I get to it. Where is it? No, I got to do this one. Israel has no right to self-defense. A UN employee is on video talking about how they don't have a right to self-defense because they're an occupying nation. We'll cover that video. And then there's a leaked video of Greenblatt. Maybe I'll include it in this first segment here of Greenblatt. And his name is Jonathan Greenblatt, the president of the ADL, leaked video of him talking about how they have a big problem and how the youth, they have a big problem with the youth and how they are on the side of what he says in the video, I think Hamas. So lots of stories to get to. We're going to try to cover all of them. We crossed 300 people watching already. So hit that like button. We need to get to 300 as our first target. I think I covered all the stories I'm going to try to get to today. This is a lot. So let's get back to this one here, or let's begin here with this video. And shout out to Erin. She's going through something with her family. So you see the thumbnails. We haven't gotten the thumbnail done. She got some very, very important family and situation going on. So just wanted her to know we're thinking about her, and we're hoping that everything works out. So I'll leave it at that. Just don't want to put your business out there. The other thing is make sure if you're online, Rome is out in Boston, or he went out in Boston to open up the clinic out there. And he got all of his stuff confiscated by some law enforcement. But anyway, check out Rome online to get the details of that on his Twitter page. All right, now let's get into the stories. Already got 300 people hit that like button. 300 people who have made comments. Wow, we already got 300 comments. And we got some super chats. Let's go ahead and start with those. A beard here. All right. Abiding 71, thank you for the super chat. Always showing love to everyone, or a lot of people in this space, the creator space on the left. And Amanda Brinkley with also a super chat. We must implore voters to become independent. How? I think just watching what the two parties are doing right now, it's a pretty easy sell to those that are open to it. There's some that's not open to that selling, but to those that are open to, like, man, I'm tired of this. People, if there's a person saying I'm tired of this nonsense, for both of these parties don't seem to be doing that, my life is not getting better. It doesn't matter who's in. If that person is a very easy sell, I feel, to where they will at least be where we're at temporarily. Because you never know, we're here permanently in the space of being radicalized, but some people may be temporarily radicalized. And like, and when this subsides, this issue with Israel and Palestine subsides, they may go back to their comfort zone. So you never know. But all right, so let's. I don't want to spend too much time with the comments. There's no more super chats, but thank you for all the super chats. I'll get to some more regular comments later. I do have a lot to cover, so let's get into this first segment, and that is, you can start here, Aaron. DNC calls the police on anti-genocide protesters. So a coalition of protesters. I think one part of the organizations was Jewish Voices for Peace, organized a protest. Several hundred people, I believe, showed up, or close to. Chuck Modi was on the ground, got some great video. We'll be showing some of that. And they went to the DNC headquarters to demand a ceasefire, and because they knew some event was going to be happening. Hakeem Jeffries was one of the people there, probably the most high-ranking person there, was Hakeem Jeffries. And the DNC called the popos on the protesters because they, of course, Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats cannot be seen on video with protesters, and they're on the side of the genociders. Yes, they can go, they'll go to the rallies and give speeches. What they can't be seen is in a visual adversarial position where there's protesters yelling for ceasefire on the side of saving babies' lives, and they're on the opposite side. So they said, 911, we got some unruly workers out here. We need you to come take care of. So so let me go to this video here. And the reason I want to play this video is because this is a segment that is dubbed Gaza Situation Has Opened Chasm Between Democratic Coalition and Young Voters. That's the title. Because this video is speaking to why people are going, they even decided to go to the DNC. So I'm going to rewind it a little bit just so he can make a point here, and then I'm going to let it play. So let's listen to the reason behind people had to go to the DNC, and then we'll get to the DNC footage.
And younger parts of that coalition, they're just really upset. And it's hard to look at this and not be upset on some level, even when you accept that Hamas committed a terrorist attack, killed 1,200 people. That's horrific. Even if you accept that it is horrific that they took hostages, and that is a horrible thing to do in any regard. You don't know where your loved ones are. That's horrific. Still, when you have over 10,000 people killed in 1 month of war, it is unconscionable. There's no other way to think about that. I've heard people say, well, when you're attacked in a terrorist attack, you can't tell that country what to do. You couldn't tell the U.S. not to go into Afghanistan. Even there, the comparison doesn't hold. The Afghan war, I think there were almost 50,000 civilians killed in that war over 20 years. If you average that out, that's 200 people a month. That's still horrible, but it doesn't stack up to 10,000. And maybe you can say that in the beginning of a war, there were more civilians killed than at the end, whatever you want to say. You can say that Hamas may be inflating the numbers a little bit. I take that, your point. Still, the numbers are incredible. And when you understand that more than half of those, at least by the reports, are women and children, how do you deal with that? And I think a lot of people, particularly young people, are looking at that and saying, this is not a moral thing. This is immoral, and I have to take a stand. And that is a problem for Joe Biden, because those would be his voters.
What's kind of sort of jarring, Michael Beschloss, is that Joe Biden's brand has been built on empathy. And this is one of those places where his empathy has seemed to fail him. The way he's communicated about this, particularly since there are, the images that we're seeing are so horrific, and so many of them involve children. I mean, the images of those infants in that incubator where they're all just trying to warm each other because the incubators don't work anymore. It's hard to watch, and it has broken Joe Biden from a part of his base that had kind of forgiven him for some other things that they wanted him to do that he didn't do.
I'm amazed that they're having this segment. I'm amazed that they're talking openly about it. But the guy the four guests, not Joanne, of the four guests, the bottom right, the guy with the hair toupee, the bad hair toupee, the historian, which I'm now starting to believe when they say historian, it really just means like a person who has reached the status of enough influence where they can get on television and give their influence, and or they're connected to some intelligence. But wait till he's going to be the one that brings this conversation back. Oh, guys, there is still Trump on the other side. So even though they're saying, I'm kind of surprised here, he is the one that's going to bring this conversation back.
Historically, it does. I don't know. Where do you think that this places him? Because where he stood vis-a-vis Ukraine and where he stands vis-a-vis Israel and Hamas feels so completely different. It's like two different presidents are running for re-election.
Well, the numbers would suggest that this is a division among Biden voters and Democrats that, from his point of view, he's going to have to resolve between now and less than a year from this month. So that is absolutely true. I would totally underline what Charles said, and that is as much as people may be rightfully disturbed by a lot of the things that they are seeing, the overwhelming question is probably going to be, are Americans going to vote for Joe Biden, who, with all of his flaws, loves democracy, wants to preserve our system, or for Donald Trump, who'd like to bring all of this down, and the rule of law, as he said?
I just can't believe, I'm going to replay what he says. I can't believe they're still using this. I cannot believe they're still using this. And the reason I stopped it is because what I said about his hair, his bad toupee, I remember I was listening to something and I was listening to the Candace Owens interview for Tucker Carlson, and they were saying, yeah, it's just ad hominem attacks. I'm like, working class people are not against ad hominem attacks. Actually, we use them quite frequently. Being against ad hominem attacks is a civility politics argument. Being against only ad hominem attacks, I'm with you. Like, have some substance. That's what RBN's gonna do. We're gonna call out your toupee, but then we're gonna point out 5 or 6 facts also. So we do both, but saying that, no ad hominem attacks at all, I'm completely against that. That's not how the working class operates. That's a complete professional managerial class of civility politics play. Let's get back to the video, because this guy is trying to say we have to pick between genocide and democracy. Isn't that what he's trying to make us decide between? He's saying Joyanne Reed and the guy, I think his name is Charles Blow. Yeah, on the video it says Charles Blow. I think his name is Charles Blow, the black gentleman. They come in and say, yeah, this is kind of crazy. Even she is saying things that's making me say, wow, I'm surprised this is on MSNBC. But then he comes in and says, yeah. There, he's down with a little genocide, but we got the end of democracy on the other end. So is what the ruling class trying to set up that we are supposed to make a choice, the lesser of two evils of genocide and ending democracy? You notice when my voice go up? That's supposed to indicate it's a stand-up dick. But yeah, black people, when they get real, like, I can't even believe this, our voice go up in democracy. But yes, that's the choice that we're being, I guess that is the lesser of two evil dynamic that's being set up here. And my question would be, well, let me let him say it again and finish, and then I'll ask the question that I would ask. So let me go back here. This guy, boy, this hair is just one thing. All right, right here.
Vision among Biden voters and Democrats that, from his point of view, he's going to have to resolve between now and less than a year from this month. So that is absolutely true. I would totally underline what Charles said, and that is as much as people may be rightfully disturbed by a lot of the things that they are seeing, the overwhelming question is probably going to be, are Americans going to vote for Joe Biden, who, with all of his flaws, loves democracy, wants to preserve our system, or for Donald Trump, who'd like to bring all of this down, end the rule of law, as he said, stop the Constitution, usher in what amounts to a military dictatorship. And if I could bring in another thing,
he ushers in a military dictatorship. People are against the Ukraine war, but it still goes on. People are against funding of Israel. Check the numbers now, but it still goes on. And he's trying to act like Donald Trump is the one ushering in military dictatorship. We already have that via dictatorship of capital. And but when we're asked the question, when we're asked to decide between the lesser of two evils, we have to examine the two to see what's the two evils that we're talking about. So losing democracy in the United States. So we're losing democracy and it's something we want to save. We have to analyze, well, what do we get in this democracy? What's actually happening? What is the structure? What is the points? What is the traits? That's a better way. Characteristics of this democracy. A democracy that suppresses wages, where the federal minimum wage is under $8, when the federal minimum wage, if it kept up with inflation, will be in the late 30s, 30 some odd dollars. So a democracy that suppresses wages, so workers have to work paycheck to paycheck and still don't even make ends meet. That democracy, and this same democracy funds a genocide, the same genocide that's on the other side of the lesser of two evils. So that same democracy is funding the other thing of the lesser of two evils. Do you understand? If we vote Joe Biden, when I hit the table, I have a short in this mic. I got to stop hitting the table. So it stops and it stops everything. Anyway, let me get back to the video. But the point that I was making is that the democracy, what democracy are we trying to save? A democracy that has a homeless population going up? A democracy that sees inflation and no relief from its government? A democracy that spends $1 trillion on military weapons and war, killing abroad everywhere? A democracy that starves people in Afghanistan a democracy that uses its military, allowing its own citizens to die in combat and be maimed, go through PTSD in order to steal resources from other continents and countries. What are we saving? That sounds like a democracy that needs to die a slow, torturous death to me. So I reject this, because weren't we just asking this question? I vividly remember, Nick, weren't we just asking this question years ago? Well, when does it end? I remember Briahna asking this question in an interview also with Jay-Z and Beyonce, aka Kyle and Crystal. I remember her asking, when does this end? Because inevitably, look where the lesser of two evils gets us. It only etches us more and more to the evil side, more and more suffering. And look where we're at. We're on the brink of nuclear war with Russia and China. And this buffoon, Joe Biden, has a meeting with Xi Jinping. And then while Xi Jinping is still in the United States, haven't even left the United States, after the meeting, calls him a dictator. And Anthony Blinken is damn near biting his tongue in the audience. That's another story I'm probably not even going to be able to get to. Just so many stories. Hopefully Nick or somebody is able to cover this tomorrow. But yeah, so this is crazy. But let me let him finish out what he says. And then the next person who talks about how this is damaging Joe Biden, listen to what she says next.
You know, beyond what we've been talking about tonight, you were talking, Joy, about, you know, what is the effect of what we're seeing today on domestic politics. Other leaders in other countries, especially those who hate us, know that they can do a lot to elect the president they want by initiating or exacerbating international events. Take 1980. Jimmy Carter was president. He was dealing with double-digit inflation, but more than that, he was dealing with a superpower confrontation in Afghanistan and an Iran hostage crisis. Without those two and maybe those three things, Carter would have won. Ever since then, a country that wishes us ill can say, you know, let's resolve the American election. And I'm not talking about the Middle East here. I'm talking about the possibility of an invasion of Taiwan or something that we are not expecting. You know, let's have an international event that reshuffles the cards. So all I'm saying is that for us to predict the world we're going to be dealing with a year from now is probably, for at least me, a fool's errand.
It is difficult, Helene. I mean, it seems that it's sort of everything everywhere all at once, like the title of that film.
Listen to this next
and the Middle
guest.
East crisis has bedeviled every single president since the 1960s. And so Biden is in a particularly difficult place. But how unprecedented is it for you as a journalist who's covered this sort of international community for there to be this much open dissent and public dissent for an American president during a crisis like this? Because on this Israel issue, I don't know that I've ever seen this much internal dissent that's made public.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think one of the issues that makes this so extraordinary is you mentioned earlier that Arab Americans and a lot of young African Americans were very angry at President Biden over this. It's not just them. I have so many Jewish friends who are talking about how their kids are out protesting on behalf of Palestinians. I think it's a very young. So many young college. You see the kind of the crises we're having at these college campuses, and you see so many of these kids who are just starting to vote, who are pissed off about this. And he's also but President Biden is in quite a fix because he's also getting stuff from the pro-Israel crowd, and he's afraid of alienating the people at AIPAC. And we were talking about this in the New York Times newsroom just the other day about it almost feels as if for Biden to save his presidency, he's going to have to figure out a way to bring peace to the Israelis. He's going to have to actually solve.
So the little minuscule crumbs that Joe Biden and the Joe Biden administration and Democratic Party sort of virtue signals about Palestinians, the 4-hour humanitarian break, that bullshit. That little bit of crumbs is getting them backlash from the pro-Israeli Democrats and the pro-Israeli lobby. And if you watch Fox News, for example, and maybe we'll play a clip, they're critiquing Joe Biden. When he came out with the anti-Islam, when Kamala Harris introduced that anti-Islamophobic coalition, I don't know what she calls it, they were destroying him over there on Fox News. So just as this guest is pointing out, he's getting it every which way from all sides, apparently, on this. So now what I want to do is probably go to Twitter first. Let's go to Twitter. Let's get on the ground coverage of this before we go to the corporate slant, so we can see that contrast. So let's do that. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. And when I start saving these, I did not know this was going to get this big. So let's go here. This was the first one I saw. And it says, at DNC, this is Chuck Modi filming this himself. This is him there. Capitol Police attacking protesters and throwing protesters down the stairs. This is one of the videos that has reached. This is the one video that plays the most on corporate media. So we're going to start with this one. Then I'll scroll down. It's a thread to some of the other ones. So here is one of the videos. It's about 44 seconds.
Oh shit! Someone just got thrown. People getting thrown down the stairs. People getting thrown down the stairs. Yo.
This is chaos. Wow. So I'm gonna let it play again because I'm gonna turn the sound off on it so I can speak over it. But this is insane. I don't know how they're describing this as protesters being the crazy, unruly ones, but that they actually do, using the same footage. But we have the ability to pause here, and these protesters are holding each other. They're locked arms. And the police are trying to pull them apart. That's what it appears to me in this freeze frame. Let's let it play some more. Isn't that what's happening here? How are we getting this mixed up? They do get this mixed up. I'm getting ahead of myself in the corporate media. Wait till we get to that. But this is insane. This is Chuck. Chuck is in the middle of this, boy. They threw somebody to the ground. What? Now, let's take the opportunity and examine the police here. Because you have one side who's saying, stop killing babies. And you have the other side, the DNC, who's funding the project of killing babies. Then there's a clash between those two people. The quote unquote authority, the law enforcement, the quote unquote good guys, they come in to do what? Of course, the good guys are going to chastise the people who's funding genocide, right? No, the police are used to stop the good guys, the protesters. In order to lock in the status quo for the ruling class who's supporting a genocide. So, and this is our tax money. The people who they're throwing out are you work for them. So the Capitol Police is throwing out their own bosses. And this elderly lady right here, you see now, if you can see my cursor, but on the steps here, there's a rail right here. Now, if they can walk her down like this, why can't they walk the other people down like that? So you mean you have the capacity and the ability to treat humans like humans, and you just choose not to. So let's play another video and get through some of these videos. Chuck again on the scene. And then here is another one. I mean, even Nina Turner, and I've been retweeting Nina Turner with some of her base tweets. She is even calling this out as the DNC is some bullshit. But let's listen to this. Now, you saw who reached in and did that. Let me replay it now. So one side is the police and the other side is the protesters, the anti-genocide protesters, right? You got all these police up front. Look who has to jump his ass to the front. Look at this Negro. Had to be the house Negro. Always want to do the most. Why the hell can't he just hold up a Palestinian flag? There's always the black cop who got to show everybody. I'm just like you guys. Look at my brutality. So, are they doing something illegal, or is holding a flag the illegal part? Or are these people trained by the IDF? So it's just a natural reaction for them to snatch Palestinian flags. It's sort of enraging to watch some of this footage. Hey, what are you taking a flag for? What is that? Let's see some of this. I'm trying to create a calmer demeanor. So let me calm down a little bit. But to continue with some of the video, where did I see? I saved it. I thought I saw Nina Turner commenting here. She did. Oh, here's the one I was looking for. And then I'll show some more video here. But Nina Turner chimes in on that thread with Chuck Modi, and she says the DNC is responsible for the police being there. They did not just show up on their own. Again, an absolute disgrace. So I give shout out and kudos to Nina Turner for calling this out and saying it in very direct terms here. But look, people getting mad at her about it. Yeah, so Nina Turner calls out the the DNC, and then all the cowbell DNC supporters, all the vote blue no matter who, come out and troll her, as you can see in some of these. Missed her best shot at getting into the DNC tonight. I'd be mad too. This one, Nina, you will never be a congresswoman. This one, Nina's mad they didn't offer her a donut. Nina, good Lord, here comes Nina Turner to pat the DNC pro-Hamas roses on the back for trying to breach the DNC building and assaulting 6 Capitol Police officers. Assaulting. We all saw the video. But let's get through some more footage here. And then we're going to bring up the corporate news angles on this, and we're going to check out MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN. And here's Ajamu Baraka's take on this first video that we saw. This is what the Biden administration, along with the elites in both parties, created. And I concur that. Let me make that a little bit smaller so you can see all of that on the screen in one shot. That is just Chuck's tweet, and it's seen 1.3 million people have seen that. There goes Nina Turner's tweet. Let's go to Chuck's page for some more footage on this. That's his pinned tweet. That's the one we watched. Let's see if there's any other one here. What was it? Oh, I guess instead of looking at his retweets, I guess it's better to go to his media. I thought there was more, but let's see. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there is more. So I showed you that one. Okay. There's that one. Okay. So here we go. I knew. I was like, wait a minute. I saw a bunch of other videos. Here goes. Let's listen to this one, and I'll read the caption. Here goes some of the people on the ground at this protest. Okay. And this is before it was broken up. It said, I worked to elect Joe Biden. On our first interview, got cut off by the police violence at the DNC. If there is any message President Biden and DNC members may want to listen to from their base, this is the one. So Chuck is saying, this is your voting base. This is the base that comes out to help you get elected. This is what they're saying on the ground at this protest in front of the DNC.
So it's a little calmer now. And what is your reflection about an hour and a half later?
Look, like, I worked for.
So I misspoke. I had a different understanding. I thought this was before the protest, before the scuffle that happened between the Capitol Police and the protesters. But this is after, as you heard in the video. So just to correct myself.
This party, I worked to elect Joe Biden and Mark Kelly in Arizona in 2020 because I am terrified of Donald Trump and I'm terrified of the white nationalist movement he represents. And I thought that the alternative was that the Democratic Party is on the side of life and values human lives as equal. And all we were doing as a group of Jews and Palestinians and a multiracial, multi-faith movement was to say that we don't want more war and that Palestinian lives and Israeli lives are equally valuable and that no more people, no more children, no one should have to die, that we want to prevent a broader regional escalation right now. And all we want is a ceasefire, a de-escalation. We want the hostages returned, all of the hostages, everyone for everyone. And we need to address the root causes of occupation, apartheid, and siege that have led our loved ones in the region into this nightmare. And we just came to tell Democrats that 80% of their base, 80% of the Democratic base wants a ceasefire. And we came as that base. We came as the people who are normally vote for them. We helped elect them. I worked for them. And instead, we were greeted with tear gas. Cops were shoving people with their bicycles. They were trampling on the candles that we had brought for the vigil because we care about human life. Is this how the Democratic Party is treating its base? Is this how you are treating the people who espouse the democratic values of peace and justice and are calling for an end to war and to treat all lives as sacred? There are police here in riot gear. I just saw someone come over with a giant machine gun. There are around 70 cop cars here. This is your response? Is to meet our ask for peace, our demand for ceasefire, for safety and freedom for everyone with violence? Is that how you think you're going to win in 2024? Because as someone who has worked for this party, I have news for you. We care about human life. And if you prove to us you don't, I don't know how I'm going to mobilize tons of young people, tons of your base out for you when you refuse to call to end this horrific war before more lives are lost. So we ask you for the courage to call for a ceasefire now.
Thank you so much.
So as in that first video that I showed of MSNBC and Joyanne Reid and Charles Blow, I think that's his name, that's the base that the what they were talking about in that segment. That's she's one of them. That young lady is one of the people that they're talking about, that they believe this. Now, Charles Blow described it like how he was describing the young people who believe in this fight for Palestinians. They really they're dug in. They're really angry. And you heard it in her voice. She's really angry. But if she was a diehard vote blue no matter who, and it sounds like she still is, because she didn't say it. I don't know if I'm going to come out in November. She said, I don't know how I'm going to convince other people. So she's obviously still in the vote blue no matter who camp. I'm just going off what she stated. Now, if I'm made to be corrected, then I would happily be corrected by that if she's not going to support them. So, but let's go to some more video. How did he have this set up here? Oh, this is her again talking. So so apparently this is the video that is saying was interrupted. So he was going to interview and it was interrupted with it happening right at the time. So let's listen to her again.
We're outside the DNC. We're outside the Democratic Party headquarters because this party claims to be on the side of life and peace and equality. And we're saying that we want them to live up to their values and oppose this horrific war and call for a ceasefire now. And we're being responded to by the police shoving anti-war activists down the stairs, shoving peaceful protesters back with their bikes. And because our party that 80% of us want a ceasefire, would rather beat up protesters.
Yep.
Hold on. Keep it 1 second.
What?
We're outside the DNC.
So I played it out of order. I played the other. So this happened, and then the video I already played. He said, "Okay, now that everything is settled, he got the interview." It's freaking
so
amazing.
It's a little.
So now, as you get, then I played this already.
What is your reflection about an hour and a half?
All right, so let's go to some other footage on the ground. Again, this is all from Chuck. I was gonna try to reach out to him and to get him on the show, but Chuck is a busy guy, and I don't want to. He's busy, so I'll reach out to him. It was short notice. That's the better way of saying it. Short notice. I didn't expect him. Hey, hop on with an hour and a half's notice. So I want to give him some time, and then
brutally attacked by Capitol Police somehow, some way. January.
Here is Afeni, former RBN member, at the protest, and she's giving her breakdown of what happened also at the protest. So here is Afeni here.
We were just brutally attacked by Capitol Police. Somehow, some way, January 6th, they did not do their fucking jobs, but today they can do it. Today they can do it when it's black and brown people, when it's marginalized groups, somehow, some way, they find the motherfucking strength.
They figure it out.
To fucking shove people down on and fucking tear gas us. Peaceful fucking protesters. We are peaceful fucking protesters. At the end of the day, you see what the fuck they're doing. You see what the fuck they're doing. We are out here because there are 11,000 and counting Palestinian people that have been slaughtered by the Zionist regime. That is Israel. We are out here because we are fucking tired of our fucking tax dollars going to kill children in another fucking country. That is why we are out here. And these fucking bitch ass pigs are part of the goddamn problem. Because these are the same motherfuckers that go over there and train with the fucking IDF. And look at them. Look at the way they fucking act. This is the militarized fucking police force. This is the shit that we deal with in America. Now just fucking imagine what those children and those men and those women and those fucking grandparents in Gaza are experiencing right now.
This is not gonna end well for Israel. And like I said, and that's Afeni doing Afeni. There's nothing else. This is, I mean, her podcast was called Fire, had the name Fire, and this is what she does. And for whatever reason, I forgot what I was just about to say. But the passion you hear in Afeni's voice, the passion you see in the protesters, this DNC is betting that that's just going to subside in a few months. And you guys will come back to the DNC. That you guys will just sell out the dead Palestinian kids and babies and women and men. You're just going to sell them out in a few months anyway. And I'm just not getting that feeling. You can hear it in Afeni's voice. It feels like to me, and I know this is something that fuels me, part of what fuels me, not just aside from just humanity, is that there's a lot of Black people, Afeni, like Ajamu, like Nick, like me, RBN, who feel like this, like, we want to respond to what's happening to Palestinians the same way we would have liked people to respond to what was happening to our ancestors. Because I absolutely feel like this is today's slavery. So roll with me. If you go back to pre-1864 United States, and you always ask your question, man, how did legalized slavery actually happen here? How did the people who weren't in government let it happen? We're seeing it right now. Got protesters coming up. Hey, we need to end slavery. We need to abolish slavery. Look what is happening. Look what it's creating. And the Democratic Party, who's claiming they want to abolish slavery, is calling the police because you're funding a slave owner. So again, I hope this radicalizes and wakes up.
We were just brutally attacked by Capitol Police.
More people, especially people that would be inclined to vote for the Democratic Party, because we are already radicalized. Afeni is already radicalized. Okay. Let's listen to this one here. This is another person that was. Let's see if this. Let me go in further and let this play here. This is another interview about a minute long. Let's listen.
DNC demanding that they have a ceasefire. We were peacefully protesting. We were talking. We stand with 80% of Americans who need a ceasefire for the people of Gaza. The police have come, just threw me down the steps. I don't have a shoe on right now. They pepper sprayed us. They've been wrestling with us.
We're doing shit right behind you right now.
We are demanding a ceasefire for the people of Gaza. And this is how they treat us. The violence is going on. The training of the police and the
You can see one officer here. I think he's having an epiphany. Like, am I on the fucking right side here? This guy, can you see my cursor. So right to the right of her ear, you see her beanie right under the light that's shining, the shorter guy right here at the fence with his hand on. If you can, try to zero in on his face. And to me, it's almost like a realization. What the fuck? I'm removing the people who want people to stop killing people. Look at his face. See if you could get his face as she's talking. Listen to what she's saying, but look at his face also.
We are demanding a ceasefire for the people of Gaza. And this is how they treat us.
He is coming to. He's like,
the
what the
violence
fuck?
that is going on. The training of the police and the IDF is hand in hand. We
Look
are
at him.
peacefully protesting. Hundreds
in
of people
shock.
out of the streets. And this is how they treat us.
Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live!
See, another black cop got to show out. That was the same black cop that took that flag, I think. Just ridiculous. But anyway, let me go back and see if there's any other relevant clips. Yes. So okay, so here, so it looks like I'm at towards the beginning. Wow, this is a lot here. Like it's almost like not in any. Is it in order? I'm trying to get an order here. So that's where it broke. Okay, so let's start here with this one, and we'll just kind of play the different videos here. So let's go to this one.
Truly penetrate your consciousness. To all those in power, I say, Ner Adonai Nishmat Adam Chofesh Kol Hadre Vaten. Let the light of these sacred souls illuminate the innermost chambers of your heart, your guts, your soul. When you truly take in this violence, you will join us in calling for a ceasefire now. It is the first urgent step in the path to a lasting, just peace. There will always be a place at our table for those who join us in peace. Join us for ceasefire now.
And in one of the videos, somebody or the young lady said they stomped all over. These are the candles that they were referring to. So this is in an order that I think I have found. So let's continue here. This is some of the protest or the march. This looks pretty peaceful to me.
Ceasefire now. 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 Ceasefire.
Yeah. Let's get through the sake of time. Let's get through some of these here. And then he goes here. Capitol Police hugging relatively small rally of mostly Jewish protesters like a post George Floyd rally. So let's listen or watch this one here. Oops, let me hit play.
Ceasefire now! 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 Ceasefire now!
All right. I got an order here now. So it's a close-up of that guy's face here. Let's see. That's a fiend. That's a fiend. Did you see a Feeny right there? Did you see her? Oh man.
Get back up! Get back!
Get back, guys. He don't know what he's like. God damn it. He's like, that guy is realizing he's on the wrong side. He's protecting the wrong side.
It's a violent motherfucker. I can shut my cameras off.
Who's causing this violence? Isn't that the police pushing them?
Hey!
We played that video. There's another one here we have not played.
Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you serve? Who do you
Calling out the pig.
Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve?
They serve capital and they protect capitalists. Jason Bagshaw is out here. He's a known. All the activists in the area know this guy and they hate his guts. And he's just saying the guy is out here. So
We're down here. Just making sure everyone's safe down here.
Okay. If you can do anything, try to call it because it's ridiculous. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits.
anyway, it's not more informational than that. That's the guy. We played that one. We played a Phoenix Fiery one. We played that one also. We played that one. So we played a good amount. I might play one more. Let me see. This one has more views, so let's play this one here. And then I'm going to get to some corporate clips.
All of us have decided that we wanted to choose the freedom side, that 80% of Democrats are saying that we want a ceasefire now. And all of these people, these hundreds of people gathered together because they wanted our leaders to know that we are the constituents that are demanding for a ceasefire. We are the ones that are saying we need to stop arming Gaza now. We are the ones that are saying that they are responsible for people over politics. That's what our party said. And we want to make sure that they stay true to that. So we came here today to remind them.
And why aren't they listening?
Well, I think they're not listening because people are scared. I think people are fearful. I think that people have used words like anti-Semitism. People have used words like Islamophobia in the ways that they should not be used. Because the beautiful thing about today is that I stood as a Christian minister. Our colleagues stood as an imam, and our rabbis are all here together saying that all of our traditions, no matter what you disagree on, agree on the fact that life is precious. And the three of us have decided that as faith leaders. But as you can see, this is multiracial, this is multi-generational, this is multi-ethnic. We are all here to say that Palestinian lives matter, that Israeli lives matter, and that the 12,400 people who have died matter to us, and we don't want any more.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I just want to say that if you have been scared to get involved, there are so many ways for you to say what you feel and to participate with us. Nobody's child should have to die. And we believe that. And there are so many people who will believe that with you. Ceasefire now.
Thank you so much.
So I wanted to establish what actually happened at the march before we go to the lies. Because now it's time to go watch a little bit of the corporate coverage of this. And I'll just go in the same frame. I had it pulled up also, but I think it's easier to do it this way. So let's go to, where am I? Let's go to my watch later. I think that's where I saved it. And they're all kind of short, and I'll go from short to long. Actually, instead of doing it this way, since I already have them queued up, I forgot I do have them queued up. So let's stop sharing that and just go to the ones I already have queued up. Now that I remember, so let's go to the Fox News coverage of this first, because of course they're the ones that are going to go as most hard at these protesters and the story because these aren't their constituency. So here is Fox News covering the same story that you and I just went through the receipts of, the actual footage from the ground, the people, direct eyewitness testimony and video footage. From the same footage, corporate media has a completely different take, and let's listen. And I'm telling you, Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN aren't much different.
6 U.S. Capitol Police officers hurt in a violent pro-Palestinian protest outside the DNC headquarters in Washington. Democrat lawmakers had to be evacuated, and House offices went on lockdown.
I wondered if I could get your reaction to what we saw happening at the DNC this evening with protesters.
Yeah, I haven't really seen it because I've been so busy with keeping the government open and getting NDAA done. So I'll have to comment tomorrow. Yes.
But just to follow up on that, 6 U.S. Capitol Police officers were injured this evening.
I'm not going to comment until I see the details.
Former Georgia Congressman and Iraq War veteran Doug Collins joins us now. Doug, what do you think about this level of violence outside the DNC?
Violence? Are you saying violence? Nobody else is covering violence. I mean, if anything else, if this had been anything else besides pro-Hamas demonstrators, which is just, in and of itself is amazing to me. Democratic lawmakers will be on the front steps of the Capitol.
He's amazed people are protesting in favor of Palestinians.
This is just really sad when you see Chuck Schumer basically avoiding questions where his own members and House members were having to be locked down because of this kind of violence. Don't tell me this was mostly peaceful. This is not mostly peaceful. These people are not here to have a mostly peaceful protest. And it's sad that Chuck Schumer just won't come out and say that.
But why? I mean, Chuck Schumer is one of the most pro-Israel voices in Congress. If not him, Doug, then who?
Yeah, I don't know. And that is sad because he is one of those voices that you would look to at this dude would say something. But maybe it's just, you're just baffled by this because, I mean, this is something that should be easily condemned and he won't do it. I mean, you don't know if that's still the forces of the pro-Hamas, and the other side ceasefire group that is in Washington right now influence on the Democratic Party. Maybe that's why he's not talking about it. But it is sort of strange that he wouldn't even say anything about it last night.
Yeah, well, there was a March for Israel that took place the day before this happened.
Listen to this.
300,000 people strong. It was a very peaceful and beautiful event. And
300,000
see what's
people
going on
strong.
your screen right here where 6 police.
That's laughable. That's laughable. The one that was for Palestine had almost 3 times the amount of people, and they said that was 100,000 people. But somehow, and you literally just put the pictures next to each other. Clowns.
Police officers were hurt. There's a big difference in the mood and how the two sides are behaving with this regard. Doug, we also want to ask you about this brand new Fox polling that shows Donald Trump way in the lead on the Republican side.
So now let's go to the next video. And I can bring it up here, actually, instead of moving away. And that is this one. CNN has a shorter version of the same thing, but here is CNN's clip. If it'll open.
Violent protests outside the Democratic National Committee's Washington headquarters, forcing top House Democrats to be evacuated from the building. The demonstration calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. It escalated rapidly with protesters shoving police and grabbing onto barricades as officers moved to make arrests.
Protesters shoving police. Good thing we have the receipts. Like, now you understand why cable news and just corporate media has a approval rating. I think it's in the 20s or 30s. People don't trust you. You have a trust rating of, I think, a trust approval rating of, I think, in the 30s too. 32, I think was the number, which tied with the lowest since 2016. We have the footage. Just think if we were to just go off of what they're saying.
Violent protests outside the Democratic National Committee's Washington headquarters, forcing top House Democrats to be evacuated from the building. The demonstration calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, it escalated rapidly, with protesters shoving police and grabbing onto metal barricades as officers moved to make arrests. About 10 members of Congress, including House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, House Democratic whip Catherine.
He says as police are shoving protesters, while on the screen there's police shoving protesters. He's saying protesters are shoving police. Excuse me, I misspoke. Protesters are shoving police, but the video footage right behind him is showing police shoving protesters. Isn't that ironic?
Catherine Clark and number 3 Democrat Pete Aguilar were all inside before being escorted from the area. CNN's Gabe Cohen joins us now. Gabe, this looked like it was getting out of control last night. What more do we know this morning?
Yeah, I mean, Phil, you can see from the video just how intense this clash was outside the DNC headquarters between Capitol Police and around 150 protesters from these progressive Jewish organizations that for weeks now have been leading these ceasefire protests across the country. And look, organizers told me they had planned to block entrances to the DNC building, and they wanted to force those Democratic members of Congress, including the leadership, the names you mentioned, Jeffries, Clark, and Aguilar, to walk out in front of them and be confronted by protesters with chants. And
you see, that was the whole point. And like I said before, right in the beginning of the segment, and the DNC Democrats are not going to have that. They've been getting protested by over war for the last year. You think they haven't taken lesson from the protests of AOC, the protests of Pramila Jayapal, of Ayanna Pressley, of Elizabeth Warren, of Hakeem Jeffries? And I think he was there, but they were protesting Jamal Bowman in that video. They're not gonna have that video, that photo op, for people to put out that they're against or for this genocide. So instead, get the police to clear them out. And like Nina Turner said, they didn't just show up out of the blue; they had to be called.
And with calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, but this scene really intensified. It blew up before we even got to that point, and those members of Congress had to be urgently evacuated from the building. And you can see why these physical altercations between police and protesters, those protesters in many cases locked arm in arm in front of the building, being pried away from it. And now the two sides, police and these protest groups, are really pointing fingers at each other, blaming the other for escalating the situation. Capitol Police tweeting overnight saying 6 officers were treated for injuries ranging from minor cuts to being pepper sprayed to being punched. One person had to be arrested for assault on an officer, and they write, quote,
so, and this is the title on many stories, especially on Fox News. Police officers hurt, and everybody's supposed to be in a panic. And then you hear, how are they hurt? 6 officers were treated for injuries ranging from minor cuts so we supposed to get up in arms about grown adults having minor cuts on their hands in a job where they have to be physical. That's what we're supposed to be get up in arms about. To being pepper sprayed. You mean by your own officer? The pepper spray was brought by you guys and used by you. And just because another officer is out here pepper spraying willy-nilly, you see how even CNN is framing it as protesters bad, protesters violent? One person had to be arrested for assault on a police officer. I would like to see that video on what you describe as an assault. We appreciate our officers who kept these illegal and violent protesters back. This is about messaging. 6 officers hurt is about messaging, about painting these protests as violent. We clearly had the receipts showing this protest was not violent. The police come in, They instigate, then they have their PR arm come in and make them out to be the victims and put out some bullshit talking about 6 officers injured.
We appreciate our officers who kept these illegal and violent protesters back and protected everyone in the area. Now, the protest groups telling a very different story. A statement from one of those groups, If Not Now, reads, quote, protesters non-violently blocked one entrance to the DNC headquarters. Police violently attacked them, causing over 90 injuries, including being pepper sprayed, minor cuts, and dragged by the hair. And look, Phil, to give you a little context here, these progressive groups, If Not Now, as well as Jewish Voice for Peace, as I mentioned, they've been organizing these ceasefire protests for weeks now. We've seen them shut down Grand Central Station in New York. They've blocked entrances to the White House. They've occupied the rotunda in a building on Capitol Hill. Hundreds of them have been arrested, but having talked to many of these organizers and witnessed these protests up close, those arrests were always part of the plan. It was supposed to be peaceful civil disobedience. We have not seen any clashes like this up to this point, and we know it came one day after the March for Israel, that massive rally in downtown Washington. So we're seeing, obviously, rhetoric escalating on both sides here, leading to what we saw last night.
No, that was just police doing what they do, which is be violent against workers. That's what the police do. That's all we saw. That's it. Let me take this one down. I have one more here, and then we're gonna go through our 5-minute segment stories, and it's got a bunch of quick hitters, and then we got the Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens interview. Let's see if my daughter has a minimum day today. What? Oh, she hasn't answered yet. So I'll wait. All right, so let's get to this one here. This is the same story covered in a 2-minute clip, 2.5-minute clip on MSNBC. We saw the Fox News coverage, just showed you the CNN. Now we're watching MSNBC.
Back here at home, at least one person was arrested during a pro-Palestinian protest outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters. It was a wild scene last night. U.S. Capitol Police were there. They clashed with demonstrators. At least 6 officers suffered minor injuries. Protest organizers say at least 100 participants were injured after being pepper sprayed and pushed by police. The group was calling for a ceasefire in the war as scores of Democratic representatives and candidates were inside the building for a campaign reception. Protesters say they wanted to block the entrances and exits to force the politicians to listen to them. Capitol Police posted on social media claiming about 150 people were, quote, illegally and violently protesting. Organizers dispute that claim, telling the
illegally and violently protesting. How do you violently protest? Protesting. You got a sign and you're like, well, how do you violently protest? So the DNC is quite fine with using Capitol Police to paint a picture. This is their own constituency. I can't see this going well for the Democratic Party.
In the Washington Post, they had just locked arms when police responded with, quote, brute force.
You know, Willie,
leadership was in there, Hakeem Jeffries and others in there, exits and entrance blocked by the police.
Well, and the police, DC police were prepared for this because those same people had those same violent protests when Assad killed 500,000 Arabs during the Civil War. And also when tens of thousands of Palestinians were killed by Assad, those same protests, of course, taking place outside the DNC.
So you see what what he's doing here is connecting one propaganda story to another. In his mind, he's connecting a much worse propaganda story to this one, so that the non-informed person watching this either consciously or unconsciously has a connection, making this worse. This is Assad-like. Just terrible. It's a wonder I mean, do the Democrats really wonder why their polling is tanking around Joe Biden and their support with young voters?
No,
like,
wait,
are they
I'm
really
getting
wondering?
word from our DNC correspondent. That didn't happen, Willie.
No.
That didn't happen. And how fascinating that the only time we see these protests are after Jews get slaughtered and Jews are trying to defend themselves against the worst attack since the Holocaust. But they have they have the nerve to act self-righteous when they sat in silence as 500,000 Arabs were slaughtered, including tens of thousands of Palestinians by Assad. You see, it's okay for them. They're fine when Palestinians are slaughtered by Arab leaders. It's just when Jews try to defend themselves, suddenly it's a war crime, and suddenly they're getting self-righteous. It's kind of sickening.
Yeah, we're seeing it at the DNC. We're seeing it on college campuses.
This is not going to end well for the Democratic Party. They're going after their own constituency, and it's almost like they don't recognize that that's actually what they're doing. But hey, but that closes that segment. Now we're going to go into a bunch of, I would say, 8 to 10 minute segments. I want to keep them short because I want to cover a bunch of stories here, a bunch of great stories here, actually. Entertaining stories here. And let's go to the Bree story, because this is a quick story. I'm going to show ya. Let me put this up here. And let's start. Where is she? Here it goes. We'll start with this one here. Or this is the start. We'll start with this one. But this is the start. This is the tweet. So we'll begin with the president's tweet here. And Aaron, you can start here. So Briahna Joy Gray goes viral, and as she ratios the president of the United States, aka Joe Biden. And here's the tweet that she ratios. And I'll read it. As of today, we've helped 22 children undergoing cancer treatment in Gaza travel to continue treatment. Let me say that again. I kind of jumbled it. We've helped 22 children undergoing cancer treatment in Gaza travel to continue treatment, and will continue facilitating care for more children outside of Gaza. This wouldn't have been possible without the coordination between the U.S. regional partners and it says St. Jude. Now, that receives 18,000 likes. Briahna Joy Gray comes in, and I mean, I'm sure she didn't think this would get this big, but she just comes in and makes a very astute assessment and says, really, I'm adding the really part for those listening only, really, Joe Biden. And this is the actual tweet. I saw a video the other day of Palestinian parents shifting through charred remains of little hands and legs trying to identify their kids. But congrats on this. And she gets what? Almost 3 times? She's at 52,000 likes to his 18,000. Completely destroying this guy. So, of course, his thread is littered with based responses, I would say, like this one. How about stopping the conflict? Start the dialogue. That's kind of softer than I would put. But this one here, the Empire File says, you've killed 5,000 kids in Gaza, but have aid to 22. I retweeted that one. And actually, let me go to some of the other ones I saved, actually, over here. That's the original post from Bree. And then we have this one from Luna Oy, friend of the show, friend of the work. She's been on the show a couple of times. Nick's interviewed her, but she says, quote, we murdered 5,000 children, but We also saved 22. So if you think about it, we're heroes, end quote. Very base sarcasm. And I'll retweet that from Luna Oy. Here's another one from Low Key. Low Key says Israel has dropped more than 25,000 tons of U.S. bombs on Gaza. Biden bombs. Just terrible. And I'm gonna go. Actually, no, I want to keep this short, but I do want to go back to Bree's tweet so we can read some more responses here, because a lot of people we know are in here. Of course, Red Berets shouts it out. It says, "Yep, turns out invading another country, massacring civilians, raping and beheading babies have some pretty dire consequences. Did you know all of that happened?" So this is a person responding to Bree, thinking he's dropping, or thinking he or she is dropping the mic. It says Roy, but I'm not gonna assume the name means something. Wish we could go back to the ceasefire on 10/6. There was a ceasefire on 10/6, yet literally 2022 was the most deadliest year for Palestinians. But he's saying the ceasefire, there was a ceasefire up until 10/6. Just clown shit coming from these people. But I thought it was pretty nice, and I wanted to shout this out for Bree, that she completely destroyed, completely ratioed this guy. And not too many times you can say you ratioed the president. That's one ratio you can put in your back pocket, Bree. And now let's go to the next quick topic. And I do want to go to the Jonathan Greenblatt. Actually, let me go to one that I already have a caption made. And that is this one here, the whitest protest ever. And that's a tweet from Caitlin Johnstone. We're going to cover in just a second. But let me change the title here. And again, this is from Caitlin Johnstone. And you can begin here, Aaron. This from Caitlin Johnstone. I thought this was a great tweet because it speaks to what I alluded to live on air. Live on air when I thought I had it up. This is what I alluded to when we were live on air during this actual thing. That's why I have the wrong screen shared. So let's bring this down and bring up the right screen, because I'm like, I knew I opened this, but it was in a different screen. Here's the tab it was opening. And Caitlin Johnstone, and this is what she says: "This is the single whitest political demonstration I've ever seen. Trump rallies have more melon in the crowd." And I thought it was funny. This is more of a very quick, funny little segment, because I thought it was funny. This is literally what I said while live on with the Post-Duopoly show, saying, wow, this is a lot of seems like this is 99% white. I think I was looking through one of the videos and I was like, man, I saw one who could have possibly been, or it was just a white person who just came from from a tanning booth, maybe. I don't know, but I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But let's zoom in on some of these pictures here. Yeah, not looking good. It's pretty white there. And here's a little closer shot of it. And it's a stark contrast to even the protests we were just covering in the previous video. There was a lot more, even with the Jewish Voices for Peace, there were a lot more sprinkled in there. But when you're talking about comparing it to the Palestinian protest, the one that I went to in LA, that was, I can't even tell you it was more of one particular race. I mean, it's LA, so you're going to have black and Mexicans, but you're going to have white people there were a lot of white people. There were a lot of Muslim people or Islamic people that were in the Islamic wear. There was a lot of families that were there. So it was very, very mixed when you're talking ethnically. But this one is spot on. And I agree with Caitlin Johnstone when she says this is the whitest protest march. Here's just some more zoom in footage of it. And then let's go down in the thread and you'll be able to see a video. Here's Chuck Schumer. Because this is her, what she quote tweeted was this video from Michael Tracy. So this is the original tweet that Caitlin Johnstone quote tweeted. It says Chuck Schumer alongside Speaker Mike Johnson and others deliver a rousing speech at the March for Israel today in DC. Leads bipartisan chant, "We stand with Israel, USA, USA, never again. We will not rest until you get all the assistance you need," Chuck Schumer advised. So let's listen to this terrible shit right here. And again, they want you and I to disavow teaming up with the right wing, with the GOP, and call people like Mike Johnson all types of names, but he's going to team up with him here for this war rally here.
We are here united, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate,
that's pretty
to say we stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand. We stand. We stand. We stand
with genocide. With genocide. We stand with genocide. We stand with genocide. That's what it should say.
Stand
with genocide.
USA, USA, USA. We are with Israel. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Like so many Jewish people, the horrors of October 7th reminded me of what happened to my ancestors in Western Ukraine when the
October 7th, bro. It's November 16th, bro. It's November 16th, bro. You still talking about October 7th?
Nazis invaded. So the minute I heard of what happened in January 7th, I knew I had to go to Israel. As the first-ranking Jewish Senate Majority Leader, in fact, the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I not only had a desire to go to...
That has to be terrible for a Jewish person who doesn't believe in murdering kids. Because it'd be like saying Clarence Thomas is the first Black person on the Supreme Court. Really? That's the first Black person is Clarence Thomas? So if I were Jewish, I would be saying, if I were Jewish in this context, I would be saying the same thing. Just despicable. But anyway, let's let it play through so I can get through this.
Go to Israel, I felt a special obligation to go. When I got off the plane, Israel was still shaken from what happened. I said to the Israeli people, Israel, we in America have your back. America feels your pain.
Look at that group. Now, I'm going to look through here and see if I can find a single person who's not Caucasian from the mountains of Caucasoid. That's from a movie, Cat Williams. I'm literally, I don't see a nail one like they were saying down in Texas. My cousin was saying down in Texas. I don't see nail one. I don't see not a single person that is not white here. So it's spot on, Caitlin.
Pain. We ache with you. We stand with you. And we will not rest until you get all the assistance you need. We will not rest until you get the assistance you need. And today, all of you are here showing we will not hide in the face of adversity in America and in Israel. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai.
Man, that is some white. That is white on top of white. That is white on top of white. So apparently Van Jones and Hakeem Jeffries are the only people who are black there. Could you imagine if that's true? There got to be some workers there.
Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. The people Israel here in America and in Israel, the Jewish people will live forever.
So, all right. So I think we can close that segment. The whitest protest march ever. And I think that's spot on as proven through the footage that we just watched. So let's move to the next one. And we're going to go to this viral TikTok video that a lot of you may have seen, but it's pretty freaking based. This is viral TikTok video calls out pro-life. All right, so let's get to this next quick segment. I like these quick segments in between the bigger segments. It allows me to get through a lot of different stories and get a quick reaction, get a couple of comments, and then move on. You can start here, Aaron. Viral TikTok video calls out pro-life supporters, and it's pretty based. I want to play it, and then we will react. And I saw it on, I did see it with Nico House first. So let's watch it. This is from TikTok. I'm going to pause it. It's under 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
But it's not fucking giving.
I'm going to pause it so that I can rewind it and start it from the beginning. Let's listen.
So I'm confused. Where are the American pro-lifers now that the children in Gaza are being obliterated by bombs? Where are y'all at? The pregnant women are being obliterated by bombs. Because here's what it's not fucking giving. It's not giving what you thought it fucking gave, because I can see y'all, but I can't fucking hear y'all. And I got a problem with that real fucking bad. Because y'all are real comfortable sitting outside an American abortion clinic praying and crying and screaming at people with your Bible scriptures and telling them that they're murderers. Y'all will sit in a 10-year-old rape victim's face and tell her that she's a goddamn murderer for getting a fucking abortion. Then what the fuck is this? Oh, this ain't that. That's murder, but this ain't. You're fucking kidding me. You're a goddamn hypocrite. And y'all are selective as fuck with your beliefs. Selective as fuck. Because guess what? As somebody who's pro-choice, somebody who marched these streets to fight for women to have the right to choose when Roe v. Wade got overturned, someone who led protests and stood alongside some of the most powerful women that I've ever met, I'm being louder than y'all. And I'm not pro-life. But guess what? I think that makes me pro-life. Because I care more than y'all do. So who's really pro-life? Because where y'all at? I'm not fucking hearing y'all. And it's gross. It's disgusting. Y'all make me sick. And thank you for proving our point. We were right about y'all. Because look at y'all. Look at y'all. Just going on about your fucking days. Just chilling. And where are your prayers for the children in Gaza? Where's your, oh my God, that's murder. Where's that at? Where's that energy at? Because it's not there. Y'all are sick as fuck. And what makes me even cringe even more is that there's this influencer I know who's very, very, very pro-life. And she's actually being so loud right now about what's going on in Palestine, but actually being pro-Israel. She's a Zionist. How are you pro-life and you're using that to justify that? Are you like that? That makes no goddamn sense. That's so, oh my God, like that is so stupid. Oh my fucking God, like y'all are insane. Oh my God, like, do you hear the hypocrisy in every statement that I have just made? Holy shit.
Pretty based. I'm going to play it again in a second, but there's a lot to break down there.
So I'm confused. Where are the American pro-life?
There's a lot to break down there, and we're going to break it down, but she goes off, rightfully so, and it's a point that maybe some of you have made, and it's one that I've made before, but before this, I made it in context of you shouldn't be called pro-life if you're only pro-birth. Because pro-life would means the extent of the person's life. That would mean help in the early stage. That would mean, supporting programs and policies that help people throughout their lives, not just birth. What you are pro-birth, because pro-birth for a person who could likely want an abortion, let's say it's for financial reasons. If you're forcing somebody to have birth, guess what you're rolling the dice. It's like forcing a person to have a child from the capitalist perspective. That's where I'm trying to get to. From the capitalist perspective, that's likely a worker you're going to be able to exploit. Because what they did is they looked at the birth rates, and birth rates are going down. There's less people having babies. Which is a problem if you're a capitalist and you need workers to exploit. So I'm going off on a tangent. Let's stay focused on this. So let's get back to this TikTok video and what she's talking about in the video. Let's break it down point by point that I want to call out. Let's listen.
Pro-lifers now that the children in Gaza are being obliterated by bombs. Where are y'all at? The pregnant women are being obliterated by bombs. Because here's what it's not fucking giving. It's not giving what you thought it fucking gave, because I can see y'all, but I can't fucking hear y'all. And I got a problem with that real fucking bad. Because y'all are real comfortable sitting outside an American abortion clinic praying and crying and screaming at people with your Bible scriptures and telling them that they're murderers. Y'all will sit in a 10-year-old.
This is the thing that Christians have been able to do throughout their history, especially European Christianity or United States Christianity. You saw it with the obliteration, the genocide of the indigenous population. You saw it with the enslavement of Africans. These are Christians that are doing this. And in some cases, using scripture to inflict such atrocities, as is Israel's doing with their claim that this land is theirs, biblically. So, point made. Let's continue.
Rape victim's face and tell her that she's a goddamn murderer for getting a fucking abortion, then what the fuck is this? Oh, this ain't that. That's murder, but this ain't. You're fucking kidding me. You're a goddamn hypocrite. And y'all are selective as fuck with your beliefs. Selective as fuck. Because guess what? As somebody who's pro-choice, somebody who marched these streets to fight for women to have the right to choose when Roe v. Wade got overturned, someone who led protests and stood alongside some of the most powerful women that I've ever met, I'm being louder than y'all. And I'm not pro-life. But guess what? I think that makes me pro-life, because I care more than y'all do. So who's really pro-life? Because where are y'all at? I'm not fucking hearing y'all. And it's gross. It's disgusting. Y'all make me sick. And thank you for proving our point. We were right about y'all. Because look at y'all. Look at y'all. Just going.
Yeah, and I think to her point, and I think I'm going to stop here. To her point, it's so glaringly obvious that this is a hypocritical point. Either you care about life and all life, or you only care about life in the United States. And even more narrowly, you only care about white life. And I think that's what she's speaking to. But the video goes viral. Check it out on TikTok if you have a TikTok. And now let's get to the next segment. And I think I want to do top 5 cartoonish propaganda, Israeli propaganda. Let's see if I have a label for this. And this is an easier one because Nico House has a video for it and he covers pretty much everything. And then I'm going to comment, but this is top 5 propaganda. coming from genocidal Israel. All right, so there is the segment, and Aaron, you can start here. Here are some of the top propaganda coming from genocidal Israel, but let me adjust this a little bit because it's not only the top propaganda, it's the top 5 cartoonish, because this is like, it's almost like Israel hired hired the director or the production team that's not good, the production team that got an F in film school to produce their propaganda. Is certainly not some of the top talent in Hollywood as that they hired for the January 6th trial. But let's listen to this video, this hotspot that friend of the show Nico House put together about the topic. It's a pretty good video. Let's listen.
We've all heard the phrase, the first casualty of war is the truth. And Israel's attempt at this piss poor propaganda is the best example of this. Let's go ahead and look at some of what might go down in history as the goofiest attempts at propaganda that the world has ever seen. Here's a woman claiming she went inside Shifa Hospital and found out that Hamas is taking all the morphine and all the medicine, and she claimed she had to amputate a child. Well, her name is Hannah Abitul, and she's a digital content creator and a famous TV actress in Israel that was...
I don't understand. You are an actress and you create did you not think people would recognize you? It's not like you had some elaborate 18 disguise on, some Mission Impossible disguise on. You put glasses on. I'm sorry, not glasses. You put a hijab on, and that's it. I don't. Amazing. But let's continue.
Taking all the morphine and all the medicine, and she claimed she had to amputate a child. Well, her name is Hannah Abitul, and she's a digital content creator and a famous TV actress in Israel that was paid to do this piss poor propaganda.
Terrible.
Did you hear about the Mein Kampf book? The Hitler written book
this one.
That Israel's President Herzog said that the idea found in a child's bedroom, translated in Arabic, and it was found in perfect condition. Oh, I should mention that he was using this as an excuse for Israel to bomb kids so that we would stop complaining about Israel bombing kids. Oh, but President Herzog came back with another hit. Here he claims that they found official Al-Qaeda and ISIS material on the dead body of a Hamas soldier, and that material was actually instructions on how to create chemical weapons to be used on Israelis. So we can start out with the fact that ISIS and Hamas do not get along at all, and this is a well-established, well-known fact in the region. But beyond that, not only does this material not teach anyone how to make chemical weapons, but it's a book. It's a book cover, which might do a great job of explaining why it's so perfectly laminated, despite them supposedly finding this material on the dead body of a Hamas soldier.
So Hamas soldiers are laminating book covers as their strategy now. This is cartoonish level propaganda. But to me, it speaks, and I said this before, it speaks to the level of importance that they place on the Palestinian lives. They're saying, your life is so insignificant, I'm not even going to take the time to come up with something that's very convincing. And or it's the fact that they know that they have paid PR arms and all-out media that would go ahead and turn this into a real story.
Soldier. Once again, piss poor propaganda. Oh, so a few days ago, after Israel kept bombing ambulances and then the world kept condemning them for bombing ambulances, Israel suddenly releases a recording that said Hamas recorded themselves talking conveniently about using ambulances. Except everyone who speaks Arabic has said that this sounds nothing like how Arabic speakers actually talk. And the last time Israel tried to release a recording from Hamas, even Britain's state media Channel 4 concluded that it was a fabrication. And I mean, probably considering they went from having zero intelligence, supposedly, about what took place on October 7th, but all of a sudden, they're able to intercept communications from Hamas. Or we can take a look at the wildest conspiracy theory by Israel, where they claim that Hamas beheaded 40 babies and even cooked some in an oven. And this is, of course, while they simultaneously claim that Hamas and some Palestinian civilians were responsible for some 1,400 Israeli deaths on October the 7th. And this is the propaganda that a lot of Israelis and Zionists have used to justify the brutality we have seen Israel committing in Gaza, except there was no evidence of Hamas cutting off a single head of a single baby. In fact, according to Israeli media, only one baby died. And that one child died out of what is now a reported amount of 1,100 people. And that's once again, according to Israeli media. That baby was from the Bay Area region, the same region where Israel was responsible for killing 112 Israelis because they were terrified that they wouldn't be able to get control over the region. So not only were there not 1,400 people who died, not only were there not 40 beheaded babies or 50 beheaded babies, but the one baby who died, Israel was responsible for killing, and at least 100 Israeli civilians were killed by Israel and not Hamas. And there's been no uproar over this. Their lies are so easily debunked, it's no wonder the entire world has turned against Israel and their Zionist compatriots.
Yeah, and I would absolutely concur that they're losing the public PR war. They're losing badly, like very badly. So to Nico's point, absolutely. Now to add to this, Caitlin Johnstone also tweeted this out. I just wanted to briefly bring it up here, and they're just insulting our intelligence at this point. If Israel's position were based on truth and morality, it wouldn't be churning out nonstop deluge of obvious lies. And as Caitlin Johnstone always does, she comes with some basic, great analysis with a little humor. We'll loosen a little bit of this, but it fits perfectly with
They're
this
just
segment.
insulting our intelligence at this point. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. Americans, healthcare, please. U.S. government. Sorry, did you say billions of dollars for ethnic cleansing in the Middle East? Americans. No, healthcare. U.S. government. All right, you drive a hard bargain, but here's billions of dollars for ethnic cleansing in the Middle East. Here's a tip. The side that keeps having to come up with justifications and explanations for why it's fine and normal for them to be killing thousands of children and perpetrating ethnic cleansing is probably not the side that's in the right. There's a tweet of a video by Loki. Israeli President Isaac Herzog seeks to justify his mass killing of Palestinian children by holding up the book Mein Kampf and claiming it was found in a children's living room. Tweet by Caitlin. They're just insulting our intelligence at this point. Oh, I used to think it was bad for Israel to be massacring children by the thousands and bombing hospitals and shooting quadriplegics and children in hospital beds, but then Israel's president waved an Arabic translation of Mein Kampf in front of a camera, so now I think it's all good. If Israel's position were based on truth and morality, it wouldn't be churning out a nonstop deluge of demonstrable lies. No one believes anything Israel says anymore. You either know Israel lies constantly, or you know it but pretend you don't.
Right. That's
you know
the
how
United
narcissists
States.
will do the most fucked up shit, and if anyone calls them out, they act all...
If you don't think the United States government, in particular the people in state government and the State Department doesn't know, like John Kirby and some of the other people don't know that Israel lies all the time, they absolutely know Israel lies all the time. They know that. So let's continue.
You know how narcissists will do the most fucked up shit, and if anyone calls them out, they act all wounded and victimized, like, oh, what, I'm the bad guy now? That's Israel and its supporters. Anyone who criticizes US-sponsored military violence gets accused of supporting the other side by supporters of that military violence. If you opposed the Iraq invasion, you were a Saddam supporter. If you criticized US proxy warfare in Ukraine, you were a Putin lover, etc. The argument is that criticizing the actions of the world's most powerful war machine means you support the side opposing that war machine. And because you're a treasonous monster who supports the other side, that means your criticisms should not be listened to. This happens with literally every single high-profile act of U.S. interventionism. Literally every single one, without a single solitary exception. What this means in effect is that all criticism of the world's most powerful war machine is considered unacceptable and gets stomped down. Those who are calling you a Hamas lover and a terrorist supporter today are telling you that nobody should ever criticize any U.S.-sponsored act of military aggression because they're using the exact same tactic that is literally always used to stomp out all U.S.-sponsored acts of military aggression. What they are really saying when they call you a Hamas supporter is, shut up, be silent, never criticize U.S. warmongering.
Yeah, because when you criticize them on Ukraine, you're a Russian, you're a Putin supporter. Any criticism, you're a Saddam supporter, you're a Gaddafi supporter. Never have any ability to engage on the facts. So I think we're going to end it there. Top 5 most cartoonish propaganda coming from Israel. Now let's go to this next video, and that is and Willow Project approved, and this is a video by Nick. Now we're going to move to it's another quick story. Let me bring up the title right here, and we move to this story because this is pretty sad. And Aaron, you can start here. This is pretty sad because the Willow Project is going to do a lot of damage to the environment and the courts, our court system, our so-called justice system, has sided with the criminal in a sense. Because if climate justice is the opposite of this ruling. But let's listen to Nick's video on it, and then we will discuss.
The largest eco-terrorist in human history, Joe Biden, just got the Willow Project approved by federal courts. The Willow Project is a disastrous oil drilling project in Alaska that is estimated to produce 260 million metric tons of carbon emissions over the next 30 years. Woo! If I was a climate activist who pushed the idea of harm reduction by voting for Joe Biden, I will be embarrassed. Never forget how shameless progressive infiltrators like Emma Vigeland said that climate alone is enough reason to vote for Joe Biden. Delete your account. Other progressive climate groups like Sunrise Movement, who endorsed Jim Crow Joe because they had Trump derangement syndrome, are even calling Biden out in order to save face after endorsing him and leading young people off a cliff. Isn't it funny how the quote-unquote harm reduction candidate keeps getting sued by civil rights organizations, and then they rely on the right-wing judicial system to bail him out? Expect the same thing here, where Joe Biden is sued by peace activists for enabling the genocide of the Palestinians. I appreciate the effort, but going through our corrupt system to stop state violence and corruption is ineffective. We need a revolution.
And I'm going to replay it and break down some of the things that he says in this video. But my overall reaction is, what are the people who supported him because of climate going to do now? Like the Sunrise Movement. Like what sort of self-dignity do you have for yourself when you're a climate person? You sign up to support somebody who says they're going to be good on climate. They are literally the opposite, approving things like the Willow, approving a lot of other land for drilling, opening up a lot of other land for drilling through the IRA. Then you say, that's bad, don't do it. Then he just keeps doing more. How do you support him in the future? What are you supporting him based on what? You're supporting him based on him doing the opposite of what your organization wants to have happen. Because you're not supporting him based on him doing things for the climate, because he's not doing that. So let's see if we can take each point here that Nick makes.
Largest eco-terrorist in human history, Joe Biden, just got the Willow Project approved by federal courts. The Willow Project is a disaster.
Now, let me read this part here. It says, even though the Biden administration describes its approval as a scaled-down version of the plan, the project will still add 260 million metric tons of carbon emission into the atmosphere over the next 30 years, the equivalent of nearly 70 coal-fired plants operating for a year. How do you hold your head up high, Sunrise Movement, moving forward? How do you not just fold and disband your entire organization after this? Like, how do you support this guy in 2024?
Disastrous oil drilling project in Alaska that is estimated to produce 260 million metric tons of carbon emissions over the next 30 years. Woo! If I was a climate activist who pushed the idea of harm reduction by voting for Joe Biden, I will be embarrassed. Never forget how.
And this is Nick. I'm sorry, this is Emma pointing out. I'm sorry, this is Nick pointing out Emma. And then her tweet says, he's not where he needs to be. I get it. And this is her advocating for Joe Biden. But climate change alone should be enough of a reason to vote for Biden over Trump. And like Nick says in that tweet, age like milk. Just terrible.
How shameless progressive infiltrators like Emma Vigeland said that climate alone is enough reason to vote for Joe Biden. Delete your account. Other progressive climate groups like Sunrise Movement, who endorsed Jim Crow Joe because they had Trump derangement syndrome, are even calling Biden out in order to save face after endorsing him and leading young people off a cliff. Isn't it funny how the quote-unquote harm reduction candidate keeps getting sued by civil rights organizations, and then they rely on the right-wing judicial system to bail him out? Expect the same thing here, where Joe Biden is sued by peace activists for enabling the genocide of the Palestinians. I appreciate the effort, but going through our corrupt system to stop state violence and corruption is ineffective. We need a revolution.
So when he says going through a state apparatus like the Democratic and Republican Party to fix what they're causing is ridiculous. And he's spot on. And we move on to the next item, and that is, let's do the bus driver protest here. Oh yeah, this is it.
Buses that were
yeah, this is it. So this is the bus driver protest, and it also is going to double as a RBN ratios Israel. It's an Israel account that puts this out, and JB ratios them. So we're going to be covering that next. This is the same stuff where bus drivers use BDS tactics. So another quick segment put together, and Aaron, you can start here. Bus drivers use BDS tactics to affect change, and I'll let the video kind of explain. But this also doubles as a RBN ratios Israel, because this is a tweet from RBN brother JB. And let's start with the Israel War Room tweet first. And this is an official account, Israel War Room. It has 264,000 followers. And this is what they put out. And it says, breaking, hundreds of Jewish Detroiters were prevented from attending today's pro-Israel rally, aka pro-war rally in DC, when bus drivers staged a deliberate and malicious walkout. Nearly 1,000 people flew from Detroit to DC on a chartered flight. You understand chartered means? That means you got money. Chartered flights and buses were hired to take them from Dulles Airport to the National Mall. However, several buses failed to show up. Drivers had organized a, quote, mass sick-out day upon learning they would be taking hundreds of Jewish Americans to the pro-Israel rally. Approximately 300 people were left stranded on the tarmac for 11 hours before being sent back. This is not the only report. Chartered buses canceling on Jewish groups heading to the rally, which was attended by 290,000 people, despite anti-Semites' efforts to sabotage it. It was not 290. They're just giving us crazy numbers, but it fluctuates between, I've heard 150 and I've heard 300,000. It just fluctuates. It depends on who you're listening to. Let's listen to the video. And this is on the bus. I think this is a worker or the bus driver making an announcement.
By our Detroit Jewish community members to attend the March for Israel in Washington, D.C., and we were proud of the significant number who traveled to the event. The buses that were hired to take over 900 participants from Dulles International Airport to the site of the march failed to appear, delaying the arrival of many or most in our group. We have learned that this was caused by a deliberate and malicious walk-off of drivers. Fortunately, many were able to travel to the march, and we are grateful for the drivers of those buses that arrived. While we are deeply dismayed by the disgraceful action, our resolve to proudly stand in solidarity with the people of Israel, to condemn anti-Semitism, and to demand the return of every hostage held by Hamas has never been greater. This has been confirmed by the bus company of their drivers and what has happened.
Wow. So
our Detroit Jewish community members to attend the.
So it was confirmed that this was a sick out put on by some of the bus drivers when they heard that they would be the ones taking these bloodthirsty genocidal maniacs to this pro-war rally. They said, oh no, and called in sick. Now, let me see if I have time to play the actual. Because there is, I think they reported on it. Actually, let me just search it because it might actually be on Twitter. There's another part of this. Oh, but first, let me go to this part and show you what JB said to this video now. And this is what JB says, and this is the ratio that I was speaking of. JB says, so BDS works. Bus drivers refuse to transfer people who support a genocide against Palestinians. And JB gets 52,000 likes on that, completely obliterating their 15,000 likes. So that is a successful ratio of Israel by RBN via JB. But let's just Google March for Israel bus drivers Detroit, and let's see what comes up. I don't know why I have it full. Of course, Nikki Haley had to put out something. So Rep. Haley Stevens put out something. It is outrageous. So many Michiganders, because she's from Michigan, who flew to DC to attend the March for Israel were denied by bus service from the airport because of their support of the Jewish homeland. This is a shameful and unwarranted attack on speech during a critical time. And let's get some more reporting on this. There is another one I'm looking for. I should have saved it, but I didn't. Thought there was a video. They took it down. I am not going to play the video, or will I? Yeah, no, I'm not going to play the video. But I do need to go to YouTube because it's almost, I almost have to cover a little bit of it because it's sort of funny. It is funny. And it's on Fox News who covered this, the bus driver sort of walkout. Of course, it's Fox News who covers it. Even though I'm pressed against time, I just have to include this because it is very, very important for the context and because it's pretty funny, in my opinion. The bus drivers. Okay, here we go. Bus drivers, house members, 10,000 supporters flood. Okay. Are you kidding me? I never got to the story where Bernie Sanders had to break up a fight, and I just see the video. That's why I'm thinking of it. Had to break up a fight in the Senate over the union guy and one of the reps from Oakland. I don't know if I can find it, everybody. I don't know if I can find it. Here he goes. All right. So this little time where I'm finding it, Aaron will.
All right, here we go. A historic day here at our nation's capital. It happened yesterday. The largest pro-Israeli rally in U.S. history, 300,000 plus, peacefully rallied against anti-Semitism and for the safe return of the 200 plus hostages.
But guess what? Not everybody made it to the rally. Hundreds of Jewish individuals from Detroit were left stranded on the tarmac in D.C. on a plane yesterday because their bus drivers allegedly refused to drive pro-Israel supporters to that event.
So our next guest was one of those passengers stranded for more than 8 hours on the tarmac before they flew back home.
Let's listen to this guy or person.
Rally at all.
How crazy is that? University of Michigan student Jonah Seinfeld-Chop joins us right now. Jonah, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing better than you. I actually got to go to the rally yesterday. You were about 20 miles away from it. So, Jonah, as it turns out, it sounds like these bus drivers, about a third of the bus drivers who were hired by your organization to drive you to the event at the mall behind me here in Washington, a third of them said, you know what? We're going to stage a sick out because we don't like driving Jewish people to that rally.
Oh, my God.
At what point were you told that?
Oh, my God. It has nothing to do with genocide. It had to do with you being Jewish. It has nothing to do with you wanting to attend a pro-genocide rally. It had to do with you being Jewish. Like, nobody's buying this selling of anti-Semitism.
So we were sitting on the tarmac for about an hour and a half when we were told that the buses were having trouble making it through security and entering the tarmac. And then about 2.5 hours after landing in DC from Detroit, rumors started going around the plane that there was an ongoing walkout of the bus drivers who worked for the company that the Jewish Federation of Detroit had hired to drive us into the city for the rally. And then a representative of the Jewish Federation of Detroit got on the speaker of the plane and told us that, in fact, there were bus drivers refusing to come and pick us up to drive us to the protest.
That's insane. So I was reading an article, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all did have the opportunity, and maybe this is the video we're seeing, to get off the plane and then get on another bus, but then they realized that bus was for a different group of passengers, so y'all had to get back on the bus, and you were on the bus for 11 hours straight? I mean, on the plane for 11 hours straight?
Yeah, so we briefly got off the plane
So
around...
it's so, like, when they're describing what they went through, when they're describing some of the anti-Semitic incidents, it's like that's it. Like, the way the words and the adjectives you're using to describe what you went through seems to be very misplaced. They seem to be outsized to what you're describing. But I think I'll close it there, at least that particular part, and get to the next section that I wanted to do. And I have to go back to Twitter for that. And that is the Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens interview for this last sort of part of this. I got through most of the stories. I'm sure I'm missing one. I got DT Pro. Yeah, the Jonathan Greenblatt leak. That is a pretty good one I missed. And also the right to defend. Actually, let's do this right. No right to self-defense. I have to do this. No right to self-defense. Israel. So Israel has no right to self-defense. And this is according to the UN. We're going to watch this video. It's a hotspot video, or hotspot put it together. It's not a hotspot video. They just clipped this UN official speaking on the matter. And in a second here. All right, there we go. Let me change the title. Aaron, you can start here. Israel has no right to defend itself, according to this UN special report. Says that Israel actually does not have the right to defend itself. And let's listen to this video. It's about 2 minutes long, but it's a must listen to. Let's listen.
With your permission, I will clarify what is self-defense under international law, and so that everyone can understand, well, there is not such a thing that Israel could claim. So, in common language, self-defense might be understood as the right to protect oneself. But however, Article 51 of the UN Charter that Israel has invoked is not just the right to protect itself. It's self-defense under international law. It's a legal term of art and means the right to wage a war, which Israel doesn't have. And this is consolidated jurisprudence of the supreme judicial organ of the United Nations. I understand that the state practice might diverge, United States and Iraq, but the law remains the law, and this is what we should follow. So the right of self-defense can be invoked when a state is threatened by another state, which is not the case. Israel has not claimed that has been threatened by another state. It's been threatened by an armed group. Qualify it the way you want, but it's an armed group within the occupied territory. And frankly, even saying the war between Gaza and Israel is wrong, because Gaza is not a standalone.
Right. So, if you're not following what she's saying she's going through ways you can claim a right to self-defense. And it's saying you can't use like you're being attacked by another state, because by your own admission, Israel, Gaza, and Palestine is not a state, by your own admission. So you can't use that. I'm going to rewind it just a little bit here. Threatened by another state. Which is not the
case. Israel has not claimed that has been threatened by another state. It's been threatened by an armed group. qualify it the way you want, but
it's been threatened by an armed group. Qualify it the way you want. She's meaning saying for those that want to say that they're terrorists, they don't classify Hamas as terrorists.
it's an armed group within the occupied territory. And frankly, even saying the war between Gaza and Israel is wrong, because
saying the words Israel-Gaza war is wrong because Gaza is not a sovereign country.
Gaza is not a standalone entity, it's part of the occupied territory. But so, in particular, the Israel cannot claim the right of self-defense against a threat that emanates from the territory it occupies.
You can't claim a right to self-defense from an area that's part or emanates from the occupied territories. That's absurd.
Occupies from a territory that is kept under belligerent occupation. And this is not only this exists in the jurisprudence of the ICJ in general, it's also been said in the case of the occupied Palestinian territory.
Like I said, like all the tides, all the public sentiment is turning further away from Israel. They were at their highest point on October 8th. That was the highest point of public sentiment that they would get. Once people start finding out what actually was happening, what's happening on the ground in your response, that public sentiment has already shifted. It's already shifted. And this UN person, and it says National Press of Australia, so I'm assuming they're in Australia at least, are saying, no, they don't have the right for self-defense. And here's the reason why. And she broke it down. I think we can go from there. Let's go to the, shoot, it's so much. So the Tucker Carlson, I got to give that another, because it's 30-minute video. I'm not going to get to that. So let's get to the Greenblatt video, because this is another great video to listen to. So let's move to this next final segment, I'll call it, because I'm going to get out of here pretty soon. And this final segment, this is Jonathan Green. I think that's how you say Greenblatt. Oops. Greenblatt. On leaked audio. Now, listen to what, and I'll start here. You can start here, Aaron. The president of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, I think I spelled his name right in the ticker there, on leaked audio. Now, listen to what Jonathan Greenblatt says on this leaked audio about the Palestinian side versus the Israel side and the United States voters and population in this framing.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States in support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, like, fast. Because again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide, it's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, flipped like this and went to like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. Like the language in their toolkits was all about the Zionist entity and lots of other language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda. We think there's something more to this that's below the waterline. It's the young generation we need to be focusing energy on. There's something happening with Iran and how it's now their propaganda and their language and their tactics seem to be bleeding into the American kind of activist space in ways that are very different than NIAC and very, very problematic.
That is astonishing to me. That is astonishing to me. Did I put this video somewhere else? Man, I'm trying to think. Did I put? There's another version of this. I guess I can stay with this version. It's the same. It's the same audio, but it had a different picture. I guess I can stay with this. No, I'm trying to do the play it all the way through and then go back and break it down so you guys can hear the videos. People are saying that's what they prefer instead of us stopping it. Stop. Now, since you've heard all of it, now let's go back and break some of it down.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen.
So this is him recognizing they have a major generational problem. This is them recognizing the mass protests largely being, in some areas, largely being the youth, especially on the college campuses. They're talking about when they're doing polling where people under 30, it's drastic difference than people over 45 when it comes to Israel and Palestine and where your sympathies lies. Let's let it continue.
ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States in support for Israel is not left and right.
It's not left-right to a certain degree. Now, I would say there's more people who are left that support the Palestinians that are right, but there are some young people on the right who are also against this. So I do want to, give them their credit, but let's continue.
It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high.
It's shockingly and terrifyingly high. This is why we see the just absolute relentless and uptick on going after Palestinian protests. You see how they came after them at the DC, on the Capitol, at the DNC. You see what they're doing in New York State, $75 million extra to the police. And most of that is going to surveillance so they can survey these college campuses and these protests. You see Nikki Haley talking about she wants names. But I don't see this changing.
And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy towards this.
He's saying we don't need no regular people on this. We need the top brass. He's seeing the numbers and he's saying this shit is so far gone. He's hearing the rhetoric. He's hearing the oppressor rhetoric. He's hearing the apartheid rhetoric. He's hearing the occupation rhetoric. He's saying, wow. And he's hearing how he's not going to be able to convince them. Labeling them anti-Semitic is not going to make them change course on genocide.
This, fast. Because again, we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation. And the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flipped like this and went to like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. Like the language in their toolkits was all about the Zionist entity and lots of other language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda. We think there's something more to this that's below the waterline. It's the young generation we need to be focusing energy on. There's something happening with Iran and how it's now their propaganda and their language and their tactics.
Understand when he keep talking about Iran gives it the apartheid, the oppressor language. So that's what he's referring to.
Seem to be bleeding into the American kind of activist space in ways that are very different than NIAC and very, very problematic.
And one other thing I'll note before I leave here or close this is that he says we're in their spaces as far as Jewish Voices. So they have, I wouldn't say infiltrators because they didn't say they're in the spaces as leaders. They're in the spaces as the ear. They're there hearing what's happening. And we must understand this is how the ruling class is going to operate. I'm pretty sure there's FBI agents, there's alphabet agents in our streams, could be possibly here, especially these Palestine streams. So this is the new norm. But yeah, I'm gonna be getting out of here. I see one new super chat. This one here. Gaza, 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 don't you cry. Our love for you will never die. Favorite chant. And that is from a super chat from DJ Adam. Thank you for that super chat. And thank you for everybody watching. Hit that like button. Get me to 500 before the stream is over. Don't know if JBN and Sabby's show is going on tonight. I haven't been able to check because I've been live. But if it is, look for that through our Substack. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I am gone.